still, I'm trying to manage my emotions. But, you know, this was just one remedy, affirmative action, the only remedy to the legacy of discrimination in admissions in American higher education.
I think that it was honestly not a remedy. I think it was kind of like a relic of it. A relic of discrimination, a relic of segregation. I think that it was kind of us holding on to that, and the fact that we got rid of it is, you know, burying the hatchet of segregation. Affirmative action in college admissions has been banned by the Supreme Court, which is a huge win for everyone who cares about equality instead of equity. But of course, MSNBC and CNN and all the rest of the mainstream media outlets who lean left are having absolute meltdowns, and it's almost better to watch MSNBC and the others have meltdowns than it is to actually get the win in the Supreme Court. It's almost better. I think that it's still, you know, it feels better to get the actual win in Supreme Court, actually move towards equality in this country rather than moving in the opposite direction. But for some reason, these people over here on the right side of the table believe that their own race is not capable of making it, is not capable of becoming doctors, lawyers, accountants, unless they have affirmative action, unless they have laws that force these colleges to admit these people and to have them graduate. That's the only way that they believe their own race. I guess themselves are included in that. That's the only way that they believe that they can become doctors, lawyers, accountants. And she says that, and he says that as well later on in this clip. Let's check out this meltdown from MSNBC here.
I don't know what the lineup is for this, but you now have 6 conservative judges, the same thing that happened with Roe v. Wade. It's now it's our turn. We get to do what we want to do.
Shout out to Donald Trump, by the way.
And let me just add, the reason why affirmative action is a good thing, it is not preferential. You're bringing diverse opinions to the table. What Charles and I are bringing to this conversation today is very different than what white former federal prosecutors would be bringing to you today.
By the way, there is nothing opinion or choice about affirmative action. It is a law that forces you to have a certain amount of minorities admitted to your colleges. There is nothing about opinion, nothing about choice, so I have no clue what she's talking about there.
So it's just the timing that you happen to have these 2 black former prosecutors here. So it's a sea change. Because what's going to happen, as Charles said, which happened in California, is like, we're not going to take race into account anymore in our public colleges and everything will be fine. And as we see, that's not happening. So it is not preferential. Race is one factor. And it's not like, okay, as I said, there were only 3 black people in my law school graduating class. And that probably was affirmative action. But now that schools no longer have to consider race, you know, I fear what will happen and will there be many lawyers who look like Charles and I in the future.
It's crazy to me that these people are the ones that claim that they're anti-racist. Whenever we're fighting for equality, we're saying, hey, we believe that you can make it on your own. Why do we need to have a law that forces colleges to admit you? Why do we need to have a law that forces businesses to hire you? You can make it on your own. You're smart enough. You're a very capable human being. And they're like, no, we are totally incapable. We are totally incompetent. We must have laws in place that let us get admitted to colleges, that let us graduate, and that let us get hired by these businesses. We have to have those laws or else we're not going to make it. We are totally incompetent. Like, that's what they're saying here, that they're not able to be doctors, to be lawyers, unless they have the preferential treatment. It's crazy to me that these people claim that they are anti-racist and claim that we are the bigots whenever they're the ones that are saying these things that are totally racist against their very own race.
An individual based off of a college education and access to a college education. Let's think about this. You go to college, now you have an opportunity to do an internship. You get an internship at a particular company, now you have an opportunity to be set up for a particular job and a career path. All of those things, earning potential, where you can live, what you can afford in terms of building a family and having access to this quote unquote American dream. All of this, in many respects, is contingent on your access to a quality education. And so when you are limiting that, particularly in many respects, based off of a misunderstanding or a disingenuous conversation about race, what you're doing is you are limiting people's access to the American dream. And that is something that we have not really.
No, what we are doing and what the Supreme Court is doing is giving everyone equal access to the American dream. They're acting like there's a segregation law that was passed today. The segregation law was lifted today. You know, that wasn't, there's no segregation law saying that black people are unable to enter college campuses now. Nobody is limiting anything that you can do. You can literally do everything the same exact way that everybody else does it. That's what we are saying, is that you are fully capable, and you're saying, no, we're not. Please help. Please have laws in place that forces colleges and forces businesses to help us.
We've been honest about in our discussion. Part of why we've gotten so far in this conversation that's pushed back against affirmative action so long is because we haven't been honest about where we are as a country in terms of race. And the fact that, as Eddie talked about early on, what is likely to occur is we are going to now see a very steep and significant divide in terms of access and who is able to really get into these spaces in terms of elite universities, people who would be able to get in there and thrive and do well and excel. And now we're going to see that segregation become wider and wider, because it's going to take a while, as Laura already talked about, for us to figure out what does this mean and how does this work. And the biggest problem with this entire discussion is you're taking affirmative action away, but you're not replacing it with anything.
Well,
we don't know
what these other states that.
What would be the point in replacing it? The whole point of taking it away is to get rid of the segregation, like to get rid of that part that allows unfairly for your race and other minorities to get preferential treatment. That's why we're taking this away. Why would we take it away just to replace it with something else? That would be really, really stupid.
I'm talking about is all of the systems, all of the social systems that compound on our students who have been historically marginalized to deny them access and opportunity. So we're not just talking about the education system. When we think about by the time our students have done everything we've asked them to do and they are ready to go to college, they have already been impacted by the healthcare system and by the housing system and by food insecurity and all of those things that we know are not colorblind. And so the affirmative action, as Eddie said earlier, was only just a partial remedy. We've yet had work to do.
I gotta rewind what you just said there.
And so the affirmative action, as Eddie said earlier, was only just impacted by the healthcare system and by the housing to do. And they are ready to go to college. They have already been impacted by the healthcare system and by the housing system and by food insecurity and all of the.
By the housing system and food system? How are they impacted by that racially? Dude, these people are just professional victims.
Those things that we know are not colorblind. And so the affirmative action, as Eddie said earlier, was only just a partial remedy. We've yet had work to do to address all of those systems.
Isn't it actually illegal to discriminate against who you're housing? Like, if you own an apartment complex, it's illegal to actually discriminate based on race, who you allow to rent from you. Isn't that actually a law still? So she's complaining about that. If there's a law in place for them to be protected when it comes to housing, and she's still complaining that it's not fair, the housing system is unfair, then what is affirmative action really doing? If that law doesn't work, then why would the affirmative action law be so effective? Why are you melting down so much about the affirmative action law leaving if the housing law doing the same exact thing doesn't work?
Systems that determine whether our students come to our schools ready to learn every day. We know the impact of creating a diverse learning space. Justice Thomas could not be more wrong. It is absolutely an education issue. We have evidence after 4 decades that students, not just students who look like me, not just students of color, but white students too, that they benefit academically as well as socially and emotionally when they have a diverse learning environment.
Professional victims, man. And we have one more from MSNBC, one more meltdown. This is from the Daily Caller. Let's check out this clip. It says, MSNBC panelist laments universities will be predominantly white and Asian. We will return to predominantly white and Asian students. We will begin to see a segregated higher educational landscape. I'm trying to manage my emotions. This guy's about to cry. It doesn't make any sense to me that these people feel like they're so inferior. Like, why? Why are you such a victim, man? Let's check this out.
It's more specifically being the space for a particular population, for predominantly white and Asian students. We will begin to see a kind of segregated higher education landscape. And the irony, of course, as I've anticipated this decision, but to hear it, I'm kind of still, I'm trying to manage my emotions. But, this was just one remedy, affirmative action, the only remedy to the legacy of discrimination in admissions in American higher education.
I think that it was honestly not a remedy. I think it was kind of like a relic of it. A relic of discrimination, a relic of segregation. I think that it was kind of us holding on to that, and the fact that we got rid of it is, burying the hatchet of segregation, of that racial divide that was always there. Let me know what you're thinking though about all the meltdowns from MSNBC, from CNN, and all the rest of them. Let me know who you have seen melting down, if there are any better ones than the ones that I've showed in this video. I'm sure it will only get worse and worse as time goes on, as the lunatics like The View and The Talk, and I don't even know who's still on the air from those shows, but I'm sure they're gonna give us some gold content, man. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments about this affirmative action law ban in college admission.